my name is Noah. You can call me the Plant Man. Today I have another cool video for you. I think today is a great day to show you guys a little bit around in the spring and what's popping up. I think this is a good place to start. So we come over here. We've got some cactus and succulents. Some of these cactus have a little bit of damage on them, but that's nothing to worry about. They look all crinkly and sad, but during the winter, they, if I'm not mistaken, they push out a lot of the moisture in them so that they kind of fill up with like this antifreeze, or they naturally have like an antifreeze in them. And so when the temperatures get really low, they shrivel up like this. They look a little bit discolored, and that's how they stave off the cold. All of these will also produce little yellow flowers. These will produce flowers as well. They're either yellow, orange, or yellow and red, like yellow on the outside with a red center. But I believe this one is just one of the yellow ones. So I've got one from my papa, one I bought at a garden store, and the other one I went to, I think it was somewhere in like Strathroy. And the one from Strathroy, I have a couple in pots around the corner, and those are Apuntia humicophila, I think is how you pronounce it, and that's the one that produces a fruit allegedly. In my zone 6A or 6B in Paris, Ontario, it doesn't produce a lot of flesh around the fruit, so I'm not sure if it's just, you know, my zone, or if they produce poor fruits in general. It's basically like a fruit with a couple seeds inside, and around each seed is a little bit of flesh. Nothing. It's more effort to cut the thing open and pull the seeds out than, you know, it being worth eating those little bits of flesh around the seed. But yeah. If you look in here, we've got some weeds and stuff. Some of this can be pulled out, whereas some of this other stuff is actually succulents. Like here, this is a succulent. And then right here, this is hens and chickens, I believe. And then obviously that's that. This started from a little piece. I literally ripped off a small portion, probably about that big, and just tucked it in between some of the rocks, and it just keeps doing its own thing. And that's what I did for there too. And that was the original one. I believe there's two kinds here. You can see the different color. I could be wrong. But yeah, that's the other kind of Apuntia. Oh, I believe this one's called Dragon's Blood because of the winter color, but I'm not entirely sure. And then this is obviously another variety. Looks more like a pine, whereas this one looks more like a succulent. You see that rot on there? That's not necessarily good, but they're in an okay spot. They should be fine. It's really close to a downspout, so some of these, especially this one, might not be doing the best. You can see it's rotten on the bottom, but it's still alive. So what's probably happened is, chances are that there's a root that came down, as everything that's on top of the rocks is basically oh, no way, that's a piece of jetstone. So yeah, chances are it's just on top of the rocks, and it has a root that's going down, anchoring it and feeding it. What I've been doing is pulling out some of the pieces. Ooh, gotta be careful of these guys too. The prickly pears or Apuntias, they have these little hair-like structures called glauchides, and or they might be glauchides. I don't know how you want to pronounce it. I think it's glauchide, and they're like little needles that come off very easily, and they stick into your skin. They irritate the heck out of you, and they can hurt quite a bit, especially if you get them all up and down your arms. They're not necessarily easy to get out either, so you should be very, very careful when dealing with these kind of cacti. We're gonna move over. So, quite busy over here. This is kind of a very random garden. We have, these are daylilies. These are kind of a weedy flower that's everywhere around here. They come up in the spring. This is hollyhock. I believe it's a black flowered hollyhock. And then these little, the smaller leafed ones are tulips, and then those long skinny leaves are daffodils. And then those are the potted Opuntia I'm talking about, Opuntia humisphala. And yeah, those are pretty awesome. You can eat the pads in the spring. They'll put out new, really succulent looking pads that don't have a lot of spikes on them. You just clean off the spikes and you cook it up, and apparently it's a little bit slimy in texture, but it's really good. Kind of tastes like green beans. That's a type of ornamental grass. There's some weeds throughout here. And then this is yarrow. Ideally you want to have a source of yarrow, a source of comfrey, and a source of stinging nettle, because you can chop the leaves and chop the flowers, preferably the leaves before it goes to flower, and then you use those as a compost tea. And each one has a high amount of a particular macronutrient. Like I believe stinging nettle is high in nitrogen. I believe this one's phosphorus and the other one is potassium. I could be wrong, could have them mixed up. Come over here, here's some catnip. You can tell by the nice foliage. It smells very fragrant. It's one of the first mints to come up. These really, really skinny looking things are garlic chives. And then this is regular chives. Probably planted a little too close, but no big deal. Let's see if I can find it. There's, so all throughout the garden you're gonna see a bunch of these. They're breadseed poppy, and everything in here that you can see is frost hardy except this. This is, I mean it is frost hardy, but it won't be this far along. I have spider mites all on it, so I brought it outside so that it has a fighting chance. When it goes outside, the spider mites are gonna run away and basically just do their own thing. Hopefully some bugs come along and eat them. Then I'll give it a good spray with some horticultural oil before bringing it inside. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. This stuff's called lamb's ear. It's medicinal. A lot of these plants are actually medicinal if you look into them. Yarrow is medicinal, lamb's ear is medicinal, opium poppy obviously. This one doesn't contain opium, thankfully, so I can't be charged. This is yucca or yucca. You can actually use it as a soap. To be honest, I don't know what that is. Maybe a tulip. Here's some more hollyhock, and then this is some stonecrop. It's variegated, but because of the frost, it's changed it all to one uniform color, kind of like that red one over on the side over there. These are crocus. In the spring they come up, they collect a lot of energy, and then they die off with all the other spring bulbs. And then sometime throughout the summer or early fall, I believe, it'll pop up a random flower in the same spot without any foliage at all, which is pretty neat. The first time I seen crocuses, I was pretty blown away. I'm like, how in the heck is that flower just coming out all by itself? But it stores energy with the foliage, which is pretty cool. There is a thistle. You do not want to step on those. And then this is stonecrop. This is just your standard stonecrop. This one's from, I believe, Sky's grandpa. So some of these plants, they're just kind of all thrown together. The bulbs and stuff, they've got an okay placement. I want to take the daylilies out of here, and then take some of the more permanent plants out, like the yarrow, move those to more weedy area, and then the plants like the hollyhock, distribute them around a little more strategically, and yeah, try and just get it looking a little more balanced. But a lot of this stuff shouldn't be cleaned out this early, because if you end up pulling out all this material or even cutting some of this stuff down, certain kinds of bees, for instance, they like to live in this during the winter, and it gives them a sufficient amount of winter protection. Same with stuff like this, there could be a bee in the end of there. And then on top of that, all throughout the ground, you might not be able to see it, but there's little holes here and there, and every once in a while, like, I'm not sure you'll be able to see it, but right beside that little red plant, there's a hole right there. And so you'll see, there's another one right there. You'll see these little green bees just start climbing out of there. They're not like by the dozens or anything, they're usually solitary, but these little green bees, they come out and they start pollinating the garden. And yeah, when it rains, I noticed sometimes they come out. These are the spike for the daffodil flower, also called narcissus. Little parrot. Here's a weed that's edible. Do your own research, but if it has this style of leaf, they'll get bigger and bigger, and then when they gain enough energy, they put out a single spike, just like any of the brassicas or the lettuce family. If I'm not mistaken, this is called, I think it's in the mustard family, garlic mustard, thanks. I forgot, but yeah, you pick these. This is the best time to pick them. You make a little salad out of them, and you go out, and if you pull the leaf, give it a little scrunch and smell it, and it smells of garlic, it's a good chance it's garlic mustard. I would do a little bit of research just to make sure you got a positive identification on it, but you can make nice pestos out of it and all sorts of cool stuff. My little turtle. You look in here, there's a dandelion, another edible green. That one's pretty easy to distinguish. There's some lookalikes, but you'll know for certain that it's a dandelion when it flowers, obviously, because it puts out that that yellow flower. Then over here, here's a couple of the black raspberries from along the side. They must have gotten there from the birds. And then some strawberries. My favorite rock. I found this rock. I know it sounds silly, but it's a really cool black shiny rock. So, and same with that bubble rock, I love it. I threw it in the garden, it's collecting some moss on it and stuff, which is really neat. All along here are daylilies. These are all black raspberries. And I'm pretty sure this is, I want to say spiderwort, I think. Some more of those flowers. And then we've got dead nettles coming out of here. Those little nice leaves. I think it's also called English ivy sometimes. And rhubarb, one. And another rhubarb right here. There was more along here, but I split them up and put them along another fence, which I'll show you. Some random strawberries, along with variegated iris from my mom. Another strawberry. And another patch of daylilies. Show you this. That's a yucca. Another patch of, those are all garlic chives. And then you can't see it that good, but that's a Crandall clove currant. Here is a red currant and a white currant. And then here's some, this is an old stump that has a bunch of like soil and stuff put on it. So I planted along the side to utilize and help break it down. A little bit of comfrey that I happen to get from my neighbor, which is really nice. Then you look over here, we've got some periwinkle, which is highly invasive, and it's also it is a nice plant, but you got to keep an eye on it because it can easily, if you plant it along, let's say like a wild border, it can trail into the wild and easily outcompete a lot of the native species, which isn't good. But if you keep an eye on it, it's a nice plant to have, especially the variegated form. It's flowering, or about to flower. They're also related to a couple different tropical flowers. So if you like those, has a bit of a tropical feel. And then this is hollyhock. Sorry, not hollyhock, my mistake, Rose of Sharon. This is just a regular pink flower. And here's another Rose of Sharon. That's also a pink flower. And then I forgot to mention it, but another Rose of Sharon right there. These are all from the same property. I went to pick up some tables one day, and the lady, I was really admiring her backyard, and she said, oh yeah, just take a couple because they grow like wildfire. So I did, and I've got 3 of them now that are decent size, and they flower really nice. Come over here, there's a elderberry, kind of give a little bit of privacy for the neighbor. And then here's one of the rhubarbs. That's what they look like, the top of the corm, before they actually put out the leaves, which is really cool. If you came along, I also put pumpkins on top because my other neighbor, he said that somebody from the Horticultural Society said that if you put pumpkins on them, it gives them real good nutrition. So you don't have to fertilize them, you just put a pumpkin on them in fall. And yeah, it seems like it's a pretty good method. You also get some of the seeds to germinate, which isn't an issue. You just pull them out or let them die for fertilizer because you're not going to be watering them enough. There's a little tulip. This is lavender. I believe this is a French lavender, and it's a really fragrant kind, has really nice flowers. A daffodil spike. I think there's some daffodils along here, but yeah, it's about to put out a flower, which is really pretty. And then the rhubarb popping out of here. I see a little bit of wax, which isn't necessarily good. I'll get that out of your garden. But I think I'm gonna pull these off just because they're a little unsightly. And then here's another Rose of Sharon. I'm gonna come along and I'm gonna give it a little nip right there, just to keep it well shaped, and it should grow in a nice uniform bush. This one's a double pink, so it puts on these really showy double flowers that aren't I mean, I'm not too sure if it's common in Rose of Sharon now, but I haven't seen too many like that. And then along here, I planted a couple crocus just because I thought it would look cool, but I gotta do a little weed. There's some bitter cress right here. You can tell from the leaf style. It also has a nice peppery taste. But yeah, come along and just do a quick weeding. You don't really have to go crazy or anything. You just keep everything green off of there, and everything else should do just fine. But the weed pressure can definitely have an effect on how other plants grow, so that's something to consider. But yeah, I think all in all, that's pretty much everything for outside. I'll give you guys an update a little bit later when it's time to do a cleanup. Yeah, great.